while long-term demand remains very strong. It is telling us to balance cost discipline with capital investment. Stay laser-focused on efficiency while investing in people, technology, and AI. In short, while we may face headwinds in the months ahead, the long-term outlook shows demand growth for every form of energy across every market. And ladies and gentlemen, our response to that demand should focus on the data, not the drama. And here are the facts. Electricity demand will keep surging through 2040 as power for data centers grows fourfold. 1.5 billion people move into cities, and more than 2 billion air conditioners come online. Aviation will also take off, with the global airline fleet doubling from 25,000 to 50,000. And as a result, renewables will more than double by 2040. LNG will grow by 50%. Jet fuel will grow by more than 30%. And oil will stay above 100 million barrels per day beyond 2040, increasingly used not just for mobility, but more and more for materials and petrochemicals. This all adds up to something far more complex than a single-path energy transition. What we're talking about here is reinforcement, not replacement. In fact, what we're really talking about here is energy addition. And everyone and everywhere, when they look, the signal could not be clearer. Energy equals jobs. Energy equals growth. Energy equals competitiveness. And energy equals intelligence. Colleagues, yesterday we hosted here in Abu Dhabi the third ENACT Majlis, focused on how to ignite the twin engines of energy and AI to turbocharge economies. Leaders from energy, technology, policy, and finance built on the previous ENACT gatherings to deliver the following findings. 1, we still rely on molecules to create the electrons the AI needs. And here, allow me to quote Secretary Burgum yesterday, who summed it up perfectly. We used to say that knowledge is power. Now, for the first time in history, power is knowledge. Gas provides more than a quarter of the baseload power required by data centers. And a shortage of gas turbines is turning a supply crunch into a choke point that is pushing electricity prices higher. 2, infrastructure is still way behind where it needs to be. We need at least 6 million kilometers of new transmission lines by 2040. You simply can't run tomorrow's economy on yesterday's grid. 3, we need massive capital investment. We are talking about more than $4 trillion annually to cover grids, data centers, and all sources of energy supply. The fact is, that capital is available. We need the right structures in place to de-risk and ensure that this capital flows to the right places. And we need to free up dormant capital that is tied up in existing energy infrastructure assets. And on this point, Trust me, there is huge potential here. And four, and most importantly, policy. Policy must enable progress, not obstruct growth. And on this particular point, let me be very clear. Policies should be pragmatic, not performative. Policies should be based on insight, not ideology. Built on first principles, not fleeting popularity. Because regulation without realism and legislation without logic will only weaken economies, stunt societies, and drive capital away. Colleagues, here in the United Arab Emirates, we take a pragmatic approach that optimizes energy, attracts capital, and advances technology to fast-track progress. And at ADNOC, we are using every technology available, including AI and robotics, to collapse time and expand value. Through our homegrown company, AIQ, we have embedded over 200 AI use cases from the wellhead to the trading floor. These tools are cutting unplanned shutdowns by half and enhancing performance across our business. Our flagship program, Energy to the Power of AI, will make production forecasts 90% more accurate. And we are just getting started. We haven't yet scratched the surface. There is still much more to do. We are very much laser-focused on becoming the most AI-native energy company, driving a new era of intelligence-powered optimization and efficiency. And here is the thing. When efficiency counts, this is the place where the lowest cost and lowest carbon barrels live. When capital seeks certainty, here is where you'll find the best bang for your buck. When good governance is not just debated, in fact, it is defined. Colleagues, as I thought about what I wanted to say with you today, there was a lot to consider. Geopolitics continue to shape trade flows and news flows. Complexity is constant. Sentiment moves markets, and volatility, in my view, is no longer a variable, it is the norm. With all the static around, it can be difficult to focus on what is really material to our business. And at times like these, my approach is simple. Tune out the noise, track the signal. And the signal, my dear colleagues, is telling us that near-term uncertainty is real, while long-term demand remains very strong. It is telling us to balance cost discipline with capital investment. Stay laser-focused on efficiency while investing in people, technology, and AI. In short, while we may face headwinds in the months ahead, the long-term outlook shows demand growth for every form of energy across every market. And ladies and gentlemen, our response to that demand should focus on the data, not the drama. And here are the facts. Electricity demand will keep surging through 2040 as power for data centers grows fourfold. 1.5 billion people move into cities. and more than 2 billion air conditioners come online. Aviation will also take off, with the global airline fleet doubling from 25,000 to 50,000. And as a result, renewables will more than double by 2040. LNG will grow by 50%. Jet fuel will grow by more than 30%. And oil will stay above 100 million barrels per day beyond 2040, increasingly used not just for mobility, but more and more for materials and petrochemicals. This all adds up to something far more complex than a single-path energy transition. What we're talking about here is reinforcement, not replacement. In fact, what we're really talking about here is energy addition. And everyone and everywhere, when they look, the signal could not be clearer. Energy equals jobs. Energy equals growth. Energy equals competitiveness. And energy equals intelligence. Colleagues, yesterday we hosted here in Abu Dhabi the third ENACT Majlis, focused at ADIPEC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sultan. It is a great privilege and an honor to welcome the chair of America's Energy Dominance Council, U.S. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum. Mr. Secretary.
Good morning. It's such an honor to be here in Abu Dhabi with all of you. And I want to, as the MC and as Dr. Sultan has greeted all the highnesses, Your Excellency, the royal family, the ministers from so many countries that are here. Of course, all of you, I say welcome to all of you, but I also want to extend gratitude to anybody who's in the room, because if you're in this room, you're playing an important role in the future of this country. If you're involved in the energy business today, we stand at a critical moment of time. And that moment of time is a confluence of a number of things that are coming together. And some of those have to do with the advance of innovation. Energy has always been integral to national security, and energy has always been the underpinning of any nation's prosperity. But as the two of those things come together to now, we've got a point in time that we've not been at before. If we think back in history, just 150 years ago in the United States of America, Thomas Edison was in his lab going through 1,000 experiments, each time not being able to achieve the expected outcome of being able to capture the power of electricity and turn it into light. But that miracle happened, and that was a point in time when the world changed. A few years later, he hired a young Nikola Tesla. They worked together. This was 1879 in the 1880s, so about 150 years ago. And then about exactly 50 years ago, the personal computer comes on the scene. And the personal computer, again, another inflection, a point in time which started to change everything. Personal computer and software became the thing that extended human capability and human knowledge more than ever before. But the two weren't really connected, because the entire tech industry was able to move ahead using very little of the electricity of the world. I had an opportunity to work in technology for almost 3 decades before I got into policy and elected leadership. In the United States, the tech industry never used more than 1% of the nation's power. It was an afterthought. Capital expenses weren't even part of the tech industry. But today, Dr. Sultan delivering what I think was the best opening keynote at any energy conference ever. Come on, give it up for Dr. Sultan. That was amazing. That was incredible. Wow. I want to just keep sitting there and just hear more of that, and the slides. And I mean, I've never listened to a speaker go before me ever in my life where I agreed with every word they said, that was a first. But that was so timely. But as Dr. Sultan was quoting what I said yesterday morning, which is true, this point in time in history now, we've got a situation, because in all cultures, in all history, for all time, there's been, in almost every language, there's been a phrase that says that knowledge is power. But now, for the first time in history, we take the miracle of electricity and the invention and the innovation of computing, and we marry them together, and a kilowatt of electricity is more valuable than ever before, because it's not just turn on your lights. A kilowatt of electricity can be converted directly into intelligence. For the first time in humanity's history, we can manufacture intelligence. And that intelligence is a general purpose technology. It can be used by everyone. I've stopped calling these data centers because a data center was a closed loop system between a company and its customers. But these are actual factories where we're manufacturing intelligence that can be used to advance medicine, to enhance education, to transform how we deliver healthcare. And as was shown this morning, it can be used in this industry and in every industry to dramatically increase the power and the efficiency of what that industry is doing. So the demand for this product is going to be incredible, because of course it's also going to be integral to defense. It's going to be integral to national security. So the demand signal, forget the noise, the signal is that the demand for power is going to go up and up and up. And as both Dr. Sultan and I have been saying, today is the day to announce that there is no energy transition. There is only energy addition. And we need to have more power to move people forward. We have 800 million people on the planet that don't have electricity today. And I will tell you one thing about capital. They talked about the trillions of dollars of capital. The capital is going to flow to where the lowest electricity prices are. You would never set up a manufacturing plant or say a mill to grind wheat into flour. You would not put that flour mill in a place where the cost of wheat was 3 times higher than it might be on the other side of a border. But why do we have prices changes? Why do we have some places in the world that have high energy costs and others low? Some of it has to do with physics. Some of it has to do with the gift and the glorious gift of abundance of natural resources that some countries have been blessed with. But a big chunk of it today, as all of you know, is policy. There's a set of policies that have been driven by an ideology around climate extremism that said the highest order bit, the most important thing, the thing that was above the human flourishing, a thing was above human flourishing, was the fear of the catastrophe of a degree of climate change in 2100, 75 years from now. But be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. Stop doing all this other stuff. What we need to do is make sure that we have the energy to drive the artificial intelligence, because the artificial intelligence is not just a product that can be sold. It is the thing that is going to drive innovation, an innovation cycle like none of us have ever seen. In the 30 years that I spent in tech, it was driven by Moore's Law. Moore's Law, everyone understands. You doubled the power of the speed of a chip in 18 to 24 months, and the price got cut in half. So what happened after the first cycle? Then you'd be 2x. Then it would be 4, then 4 became 8. 8 became 16, 32, 64, 128, 256K, and on, 5, 12, 10, 64. It was an exponential curve of increase in power in a drop of price, and many people could not understand, many humans couldn't understand the rate of change that was occurring because of that change. But what do we have now with AI and the advanced AI models? It's not Moore's Law. It's much, much faster than Moore's Law. If there's a CEO in this room that said, I looked at AI and I don't think it's a fit for our company, and you looked at that product a year ago, Well, 6 months ago, there's a new AI model that was 10 times better than the one you rejected, and there's a new one coming out now that's 10 times better than the one 6 months ago. This isn't 2x. Some of these changes are occurring at a 10x pace, 10x every 6 months, not 2x every 2 years. So anyone who misunderstands how rapidly AI is going to affect your business and how your need for power is going to go up. I like to say, they used to say in the global brand of Kodak, they had a phrase when they would take a great picture, and it was called a Kodak moment. Well, there was also a Kodak moment where Kodak, one of the great brands, top 30 companies in the world, misunderstood how fast digital photography was going to overtake the film business. And Kodak moment had Kodak basically disappeared off the planet. There will be executives, there will be companies that have their Kodak moment because they do not understand the speed at which AI is coming and the impact it's going to have on their business. But that's not the case here. And I want to say again why we're so proud to be here today. The United States back in force at ADIPEC, 248 U.S. companies that are here after a bit of an absence the last 4 years, but we're back. We're so pleased in the relationship between the United States and the UAE. President Trump sends his greetings to all. He had such a fantastic trip here back in May. The importance of the entire Gulf region to the United States has never been more important. There's an understanding in this administration that we not only share values, but we share a belief, and we share a belief about energy policy. And I would describe President Trump's energy policy in 2 words: peace and prosperity. He is the peace president. He's resolving conflicts all over the world. Think of it, 1 year ago today, we're coming up on what was the election, almost today, a year ago. A year ago, the United States of America had a ban on LNG exports. We had a ban on building new LNG export facilities in our country. It made no sense to some of us who campaigned hard for President Trump to win. Since that time, there's been an unleashing. On day one, he turned that around. There was an unleashing of capital or unleashing of ingenuity. New capacity has increased to be able to export LNG. Our policy is to sell energy to our friends and allies so that they don't have to buy from our adversaries. For too long, and it's happening right now, the Russia and Ukraine war is being funded by energy sales. Terrorism across this region and around the world, funded by energy sales. We need to take this opportunity and grab this moment of peace, grab this point of the transition, the inflection point we're in right now, and bring energy to everyone, bring artificial intelligence to everyone, which will improve all lives, and bring peace to everyone. We have that opportunity to do that, but we need all of your help. We need all of your help to do that. And when I think about the opportunity that's in front of us, when I think about what can happen, when I think about how incredible the future can be, working together to pursue the goals that were described here today about energy and energy abundance, because energy abundance is what we're talking about. The energy to be able to have affordable electricity and affordable power, whether it's for aviation and for industry. And we talk about AI today, and we talk about AI in the form of digital, but the wave that's coming just right behind that is physical AI. Every new manufacturing plant is going to be filled with robotics that also need more power. Distribution centers are going to be filled with automation that need more power. Any industry that you can imagine is going to need more power tomorrow than it does today. And so with that, I would say again for policymakers, the key phrase, we need innovation, not regulation. Regulation is backwards looking. There are no history books talking about, the unelected bureaucrats who came up with a great idea to try to move their ideology to restrict innovation. That book doesn't exist. We want to fill the books with innovators and inventors. And for those of you that are here today, companies that are investing in R&D to advance energy, to make it more efficient, we can solve every problem together related to any issues you can imagine that people might think we might have with climate, including more accurate modeling, including better efficiency on how we do things. We can have clean air, clean water, clean soil health. We can have all of that. We can do both, as it said in Dr. Sultan's slide. We are living in a world of and, not a world of or. And when we do that, I want to understand the United States is taking a completely different 180-degree change. We are for all forms of energy that are reliable, affordable, don't require subsidy, and provide base load, whether that's geothermal, whether it's nuclear, all of these things. But part of what that takes is also, it takes us to have critical minerals. And as you know, there's been some disruption and some threats to the supply chain of critical minerals. In the last few weeks, the United States has announced a framework for creating a club of nations to be able to trade across that club of nations in fair trade, to be able for refining and processing critical minerals. We invite any country that is interested in having a dialogue around that to join us. This effort began 2 weeks ago, and we have 6 countries, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Australia, and others that Thailand already signed up to do this, because we need to make sure that we cannot advance the industries that we're talking about without making sure that we all have access as a group of allies to those materials. So in conclusion today, I want to close with a challenge to all of you. I want to close with a challenge and with some gratitude. I want to again share my gratitude to the leadership of UAE and to His Highness, Your Excellency, the incredible reception we've had here from last night to yesterday to today, meeting so many people that are aligned and supportive. But Dr. Sultan, again, for your leadership of ADNOC and this conference, bringing people together that are saying that there is actually something more important than the regulations. And that thing that's more important than the regulation is the innovation that will solve all the problems that the regulators are trying to solve and then some. But we have to break free the human spirit, the ability to move forward and to take the power, this general purpose technology of AI, and apply it broadly and freely to so many different solutions. And when we do that, working together, there is really no limit to what we can accomplish. We can raise the standard of living for people around the world. We can bring electricity to those that don't have it. We can bring solutions. We can lower costs. But it all depends on affordable, reliable energy. And that's what this conference is about. So as I challenge all of you today, what can you do in your countries as policymakers? What can you do as business leaders? What can you do as entrepreneurs and innovators to have your own companies move forward more quickly? Because right now what we need speed to power. People have described the climate as an existential threat. Again, to help people understand U.S. energy policy, we were focused on 2 existential threats. One is Iran could not have a nuclear weapon. That was an existential threat. We've made some actions against that at least give us some breathing room. Hopefully with a dialogue, we can move to a world where we don't have to worry about that and there can be peace, extended peace in this region. But the second thing is the free world cannot lose the AI arms race. And for the AI arms race, you just need chips and you need software models, you need more electricity. And we were on a path in many parts of the free world with regulation that was actually trading off base load for intermittent, unreliable, highly subsidized, and costly. We need to make sure that we are committed to having enough power to drive and win the AI arms race. That's the message here today. And again, for that capital, for the policymakers, capital is going to flow. My example of the wheat mill is the trillions of dollars are going to end up in the places that have low electricity prices. If you're a business analyst, that's where you need to look at. If we have parts of the world, if we have groups of countries, if we have others that have so much regulation that they're forced to have high prices, then you're not going to see that capital. So together, let's get the capital flowing. Let's get the energy moving. Let's make sure that we can actually take the phrase and make it true, that not just that knowledge is power, but power is knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. I'd like to invite the Ministers of Energy of the UAE, Qatar, and Egypt to the stage for a quick panel. We're going to be discussing today energy realities securing the future in an uncertain world. Your Excellencies, please join me. We're going to have a bit of a lightning round this morning. So I've got about 10 minutes with you gentlemen, so let's make them count. Think in sound bites. Your Excellency, Suhail Masroui, the Minister of Energy here in the UAE. It's an honor and a privilege to speak with you this morning. Walk me through the latest OPEC Plus decision. Are we going to see a glut in the oil market?
Well, first of all, it's not only about oil or gas anymore. I think we're talking about energy. And the three things that we need to be sure after seeing the numbers from His Excellency Dr. Sultan's presentation and Secretary Burgham as well, there is a requirement for more energy. And same with oil and gas. The world, and absolutely no doubt, would require more resources. Those resources will be definitely more oil, definitely more gas, definitely more renewable energy, and we need to make sure that the environment for investment is allowed to do that. If we're not achieving a balance between the price and what the world requires, we will not have the flow of investment enough to do it. I know some countries like UAE and others are investing regardless, because we know the demand is there, the demand is happening, but not everyone can do what we are doing. And if we are not investing in a large scale, with the decline that we see in demand and the shrinkage we see in the stored quantities, which no one is talking about, we will have an issue down the road. And I have no doubt that this group is meaning well for the world, and we are trying to achieve that balance, keeping in mind we're not the only producers in the world. Our share of the world production is reducing, and if we are not investing more, but I think with the AI, with the data centers, we will definitely need more energy.
So you're not worried about an oil glut in 2026?
I'm not going, Hadley, I'm not going to talk about an oversupply scenario. I can't see that. I can't justify that. And I think all of what we are seeing is more demand. We just did not quantify how much is the additional requirement for power going to demand from gas, going to demand from oil. And keep in mind, part of the gas is associated. So we will have to produce those barrels in order to get the gas.
Your Excellency Al-Kaabi, we're talking about an uncertain world. We're talking about politics. Is Qatar going to stop its LNG exports to Europe?
First, I'd like to thank His Excellency and His Excellency Dr. Sultan for inviting me to this conference. It's a pleasure to be with everybody, and I think it's very hard to speak after the two speeches that we heard, which were magnificent, and I agree with everything they said. Regarding whether we would stop to Europe, you're talking about the regulations in Europe. One of the things that I would like to highlight is, I think, maybe if you look at everybody in the room, and I think most of these companies are our colleagues and friends, we have had in Qatar the same policy and our view on how we see the business, how we see the transition, how we see the need for oil and gas for the future, and have not changed our ways. We have announced that we can't reach net zero because we don't think it's achievable. I think, a small part of this conference, unfortunately, changed with politics, depending on, when it was President Biden and now President Trump and so on. And I think they're not looking at facts and realities. And I think we shouldn't be following politics when we look at the lives of people for the future and how much energy we need in the future. Going back to your question, we have announced very clearly, I've spoken on several occasions, if Europe does not really look at how they can water down the CSDD or cancel the CSDD and still have a penalty of 5% of our 5% of our total world turnover as a penalty we will not be delivering LNG to Europe for sure, 100%. And the reason being is what I just said. We have already announced a while back that we can't reach net zero, and that's one of the requirements, among other host of things that I think the majority are aware of. So I think that Europe needs to understand that I think they need the gas from Qatar, they need the gas from the US, they need the gas from many places around the world. And I think if they don't change that, it's not us as a company, it's Toyota delivering cars that will be impacted. This is not an oil and gas thing. So I think it's very important that you look at this very seriously, and I think that's being looked at by the Europeans.
And Your Excellency Badawi, just a quick one for you. We're talking about a $35 billion gas deal that Israel called off, essentially. Do you believe you're going to be able to get that deal back on the table for Egypt?
So first of all, it's a great pleasure to be here, and Your Highnesses, and also really a big thank to Dr. Sultan, right, for having us here. When you look at Egypt, we're very much focused in terms on how we can really play a key role in the energy landscape and how we can really help to have molecules in the region, in the East Mediterranean, to be monetized at the lowest cost per scuff. And also in terms of enabling really this monetization to take place, leveraging the infrastructure, right, that exists in Egypt, and to make sure that we avail that energy need, to the different markets where it's required. When you look at Egypt, Egypt itself has a market of 120 million people. And at the same time, it has, energy needs which are growing, year on year. But more importantly is that really we're focused, and I like the word that Dr. Sultan mentioned about, filtering out the noise and really focusing really in terms on the signal. And we're very much, focused in terms on how we can unlock, the upstream sector, both, the oil and gas, accelerate production of existing fields, accelerate exploration to unlock future reserves, and not only in Egypt, but in the Eastern Mediterranean. And as well in terms of focusing on really on the infrastructure that we have to help our partners, both in Egypt and in the region, to monetize those molecules, whether in terms of oil or gas, through the petrochemical sector, to create value-added derivatives, through the refineries, to create value-added, products, or for our export terminals, to make that energy available, in the region. The third one is also on the mining, and critical minerals is also very, very important, as Secretary Doug Burgum, mentioned, and Egypt is very much focused in terms of unleashing the potential, right, of the mining sector, right, in Egypt, and collaborating with our partners to make that available, not only in terms of raw material, but as well in terms of industry, and also working really on the fourth pillar, which is the energy mix. Everybody talked about how energy is very important, and we're very much focused on creating the energy mix, which leverages, renewables, and which leverages, the oil and gas, and which leverages as well nuclear, to make sure that we actually make available gas to where it can create value-added derivatives, and that we can provide the energy needs. And all of that without forgetting, the people element, because again, AI, technology, and so forth will always require people, and hence why we're focused on the health and safety of everybody involved in the value chain and on the climate. And collaboration is key. Our sixth pillar is collaboration. And really, I thank Dr. Sultan, and ADIPEC is a great example of really having an environment to foster this collaboration between different, members, whether policymakers, different industries, and also how we're leveraging collaboration with different countries right in the region, and also lately as well with Cyprus, to make that gas available in Cyprus, to be able to be available through the Egyptian infrastructure for the rest of the world, and also enabling, Egypt to be a platform for growth for companies, like Dr. Sultan was mentioning about having Arceus to grow as a vehicle, not only in Egypt but for the region. So we're very, very proud of the collaboration and really enabling those 6 key pillars to foster this collaboration with all our partners within the whole East Mediterranean to avail that energy that is required.
Your Excellencies, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Colleagues, here in the United Arab Emirates, we take a pragmatic approach that optimizes energy, attracts capital, and advances technology to fast-track progress. And at ADNOC, we are using every technology available, including AI and robotics, to collapse time and expand value. Through our homegrown company, AIQ, we have embedded over 200 AI use cases from the wellhead to the trading floor. These tools are cutting unplanned shutdowns by half and enhancing performance across our business. Our flagship program, Energy to the Power of AI, will make production forecasts 90% more accurate. Meet investment, ambitious, meet action. And the future of energy is not just debated. In fact, it is defined. Colleagues, as I thought about what I wanted to say with you today, there was a lot to consider. Geopolitics continue to shape trade flows and news flows. Complexity is constant. Sentiment moves markets, and volatility, in my view, is no longer a variable, it is the norm. With all the static around, it can be difficult to focus on what is really material to our business. And at times like these, my approach is simple. Tune out the noise, track the signal. And the signal, my dear colleagues, is telling us that near-term uncertainty is real, while long-term demand remains very strong. It is telling us to balance cost discipline with capital investment. Stay laser-focused on efficiency while investing in people, technology, and AI. In short, while we may face headwinds in the months ahead, the long-term outlook shows demand growth for every form of energy across every market. And ladies and gentlemen, our response to that demand should focus on the data, not the drama. And here are the facts. Electricity demand will keep surging through 2040 as power for data centers grows fourfold. 1.5 billion people move into cities, and more than 2 billion air conditioners come online. Aviation will also take off, with the global airline fleet doubling from